I've got some concerns about this Paul George signing for the 76ers, but I'll save those for the end because I want to start off with his fit here with this team, and that is definitely not one of my concerns. I actually really like his fit here with the Sixers because there's going to be a lot of two-man actions between Maxey and Embiid, and they have one of the best two-man games in the league. Like here, pick and roll. You're going to have Maxey operating with the ball, getting downhill, putting a ton of pressure on the rim with his elite slashing ability. Combined with the gravity of Embiid off the roll, it's going to force these corner defenders, these help side defenders, to really commit to tagging the roll and serving their help side duties because these two have so much gravity together. And this is where Paul George comes in as the play finishing extension from the corner, from three-point land, because he's one of the best catch and shoot guys in the league, quietly, has been for years now. So Maxey, who's a very good passer in his own right, is going to be able to find Paul George in these instances when his man gets just enough out of line and overcommits just enough. Maxey will spray it out to Paul George, and if he gets even just a sliver of lighting from distance off the catch, Paul George is hitting the shot with regularity. So I really like him in that play finishing role. And to add to his off-ball scoring, he is great at attacking closeouts. Here, I really like this relocation off of Mason Plumlee getting doubled. This could be a little bit of a tease to Joel Embiid getting doubled in the post and Paul George operating off of those as well, one could say. But Derrick Jones is going to be the one closing about here. And because Paul George is such a lethal shooter, he warrants heavy closeouts, and a lot of, defenders are very nervous about him shooting from distance. Here you're going to see just the slightest pump fake from Paul George off the catch, and it gets Derrick Jones up in the air off of his feet. Again, this is where the gravity of his elite catch and shoot game comes in, and Paul George has plenty of counters. He's very good off of the catch, attacking closeouts when these guys over contest. That was a great pump fake. Gets his man in the air, he's attacking downhill with the man advantage, and this pass, he picks up his dribble and makes it probably just a tick too early, but I'm being very nitpicky. This was overall a good pass, this was a great attack off the closeout, and you kind of get the point I'm trying to make. Here he's in the corner, this is just a nice baseline cut to kind of round out his off-ball scoring portfolio, which is elite. Like, he's still an elite off-ball scorer. It's the on-ball stuff where he becomes more polarizing. On this possession, he just gets locked up by PJ Washington. He tries to attack downhill with his left hand here off of a cross, a right-left cross to get downhill to the left, try to turn the corner, and PJ Washington just cuts him off because Paul George struggles turning corners these days. He's not very bursty getting downhill, and even from this point when this is cut off, there are some guys that have like enough strength creation with their bumps to kind of get PJ Washington a little bit off on his back feet here and then quickly counter into something going downhill to the right. But Paul George doesn't quite have that in his bag either. And then from here, he's got a reset. He tries to get into a miniature little sidestep mid-range shot, which he's very comfortable with, but it's easy for PJ to sit on this. And now Paul George is throwing Kawhi essentially a bomb with grenade, whatever you want to call it, with 7 seconds left in the shot clock. So separation on ball, getting downhill has been an issue for him because he's not super bursty. And there are times where I question his processing. Like, what is your plan on this drive here, Paul George? He puts a little move on Daniel Gafford, but Gafford is like 3 feet away, so he's going to have enough time to like react to whatever Paul George is doing here, whatever counter he plans on pulling off. George then goes downhill, drives into a congested paint area where you've got Josh Green ready to help on the block, but specifically PJ Washington standing right at the restricted area. You are driving into traffic here. Paul George picks up his dribble, and now you're fucked. Like, doubled, you're in a bad spot, you can't get a shot off, you have no dribble to get yourself out of this, and clearly Paul George, I don't know what his plan is, but this isn't what he expected, because he makes a bad panic pass out to Kawhi Leonard, and it leads to a turnover. So, like, the getting downhill stuff is an issue, And I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in the end and what it means for Philadelphia. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't have an on-ball role. He's still a very, very talented on-ball player. The shot making is still special off the dribble. Not only, pull up and sidestep threes, but what he can do in the mid-range with like his pacing, his footwork, manipulating defenders, rising above guys. It's very, very good. And I think ultimately this game winner against the Cavs kind of showcases everything. Here he switched on to Evan Mobley, one of the best defenders in the league. He tries to get downhill. Sorry, it just glitched there a little bit. Let's get a cleaner view. It's still glitching, but you see him get cut off. Doesn't have the burst to blow by Evan Mobley. Again, a talented defender, but still a 7-footer nonetheless. So he's got to kind of reset here. He's got the handle to keep Mobley's feet moving and guessing, essentially. And then this is where Paul George is kind of at his best. The deceleration is still very, very good. So if he can manage to threaten something downhill on defenders and get them some sort of momentum moving downhill, he's really good at decelerating quickly and getting into a step back. And look at Evan Mobley. He ends up falling on the ground here because he has so much downhill momentum that Paul George stopped within an instant with his elite deceleration. He's very good with these step backs. And of course he hits that shot. Open step back, Paul George in the mid-range. It's pretty much money. So PG, his fit with the Sixers, very good. I think the off-ball scoring next to Maxey and Embiid is going to shine. I like that he's not the primary on-ball guy or even the secondary. I think that's ideal. The one thing I'm concerned about is Paul George kind of has talked about in the past. He really likes the ball in his hands. Like that's where he gets his rhythm from. He's going to have to accept the fact that he's not going to be on ball as much. But that's a great thing because you saw when James Harden got to LA last year, George's usage rate was one of the lowest of his career, but his true shooting was over 60% for the first time in his career. It was the most efficient Paul George scoring season we've ever seen because he was operating off of elite playmaking and serving in a little bit more of an off-ball role. And I think that's perfect for him. So hopefully he can accept that. I think it's perfect. Third option is perfect for Paul George. Defensively, he doesn't move the needle for them, but he's a good team defender, still good at the point of attack. I would like to see Philly add an even better point of attack defender because it's just something their team needs, and I don't want Paul George drawing tough assignments night in, night out in the regular season, but he is still good in both of those regards. Just not like a huge needle-moving game changer. Now, the concern is the contract. Paul George, in the window, I should say, with Philly. He's near 34 years old, right? 4-year deal. He's going to eat up over 30% of Philly's cap for the next 4 years. I think at this point, he's a fringe top 30 player that's on the decline. So in 2 years, is he going to be worth his contract? Hell no. Right now, even, I don't think this is like a slam dunk in the short term. It's like a fine short-term contract with really rough long-term ramifications. And this also extends to Joel Embiid. I talked about how politics-wise, Philly could just never trade Embiid unless he requested a trade, but it would probably be best for them to cash out this offseason because Embiid is one of the best players on the planet, but it's going to be tough for them to build around him. At the time, to be fair, I didn't think they were going to land Paul George, which, regardless of what I just said, he is still the premier free agent and the top guy they could have, acquired. But also just Embiid, what's his longevity look like? Not to play this game, not to predict injuries or decline, but if I'm going to do it for a superstar, it's probably going to be Embiid. His playstyle is so physically taxing. He's had so many injury and durability concerns in the past, and he's already north of 30 years old. So I don't know if Embiid's going to be one of these superstars that's still dominating 4 or 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, just to be honest. He'll probably still be very good in 3 years, but is he top 5? I don't know. So Philly's window is probably shorter than we think. But again, if they're going to keep Joel Embiid, if they're going to commit to this thing, they had to do something ASAP. They just got off Tobias Harris's contract. So this is essentially a Tobias Harris for Paul George swap, which if you look at it that way, obviously it's a huge win for the Sixers. And ultimately, again, I really like his fit. I think the Sixers really, this is their best move. This is the best move they could have made. But I think Paul George's on-ball stuff gets a little overrated at this point. I think Philly's window is shorter than we realize, and that is concerning because when I look at the Eastern Conference landscape, the Celtics are clearly still the best team in that conference, and I still don't know if Philly is quite a shoo-in for second best team in the East. So shit should be interesting.